Hello and good evening. Here is the news at 6. First, the highlights. Lagos State government set to inculcate financial literacy for indigent women. Nigeria receives 846,000 doses of malaria vaccine. On a foreign European Commission president to present new plan on migrant deportation. And in sports, Minister of Sports congratulates Flamingos for impressive performance against New Zealand. Now the details. I am Akan Usen. In a bid to strengthen its financial inclusion policy, Lagos State government has commenced the process of inculcating financial literacy for indigent women in hard-to-reach communities as an integral part of the Sustainable Development Goals. While speaking with journalists during a press conference in Alausa, Special Advisor to the Governor on Sustainable Development Goals, Oreoluwafini Awokoya, noted that the first phase of the intervention targets 100 women per communities in 14 local government areas of the state. Fini Awukoya, who commended the development partners on the project, urged other institutions and the private sector to join in the human capital development efforts to bridge the gap for women in communities that have been underserved and more on SDG projects.
And for us here at the Office of Sustainable Development Goals, it's never about going it alone. We believe very much in SDG 17, which is Partnership for the Goals. It pronounces our responsibility and steady efforts to bridge the financial inclusion gap, especially for women in communities that have been underserved for years.
Representatives of the partners on the project with the Lagos State Office of Sustainable Development Goals appreciated the efforts of the state government in supporting financial inclusion for women and promoting awareness among them for empowerment. The theme of the project is Promoting Human Capital Development HCD in Lagos State through advocacy for women's financial inclusion in hard-to-reach communities and increased awareness of data's role in delivering better HCD outcomes. The Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency, DSVA, has continued its statewide sensitization to all community development councils, CDCs, and community development associations, CDAs, across the state. As a community engagement team of the agency visited Olorda LCDA, Executive Secretary Titi Lola Vivo Adeni said reaching these communities was critical for collaborative efforts in the fight against all forms of abuse and violence, and that it was necessary to keep these issues on the front burner as the CDC body serves as a grassroots approach to reaching members in their communities. Head of Community Engagement Units, Damilare Adeusi, addressed the participants on the alarming issues of SGBV, the forms of abuse, preventive measures, myths surrounding SGBV, reporting procedures, and the available support services were discussed in a meeting. On the spot, Chairman of Olorda Local Council Development Area, Ganu Adeshino, appreciated the agency for bringing such vital information to the CDC leaders and members of the community. Lagos State government has alerted residents and property owners along the Ogun River banks to be ready to relocate to higher grounds as the authorities of the Ogun Osun River Basin Development Authority commence a staggered release of water from Oyo Dam. Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, said Lagosians needed to be alerted on the commencement of release of water to maintain the sanctity of the dam and its socio-economic implications for Lagos State. Wahab said it is crucial to understand that the dam's annual operations are informed by real-time hydrological data rainfall predictions from the Nigerian Meteorological Agency NIMET, and flood outlooks from the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency NISA, saying these sources guide the water release decisions to ensure both flood control and integrity of the dam. He said the state government and the Ogun-Osun River Basin Development Authority acknowledges the concerns raised regarding the release of water from the dam and its impact on surrounding communities, particularly those along the Ogun River water channels extending into Lagos State. The commissioner assured that the state government will continue to monitor the situation closely and collaborate with relevant agencies and affected communities to address humanitarian concerns, particularly for vulnerable groups like women, children, the elderly, and people living with disabilities. Now to the rest of the stories. Nigeria has received 846,000 doses of a groundbreaking malaria vaccine from development partners to reduce the country's high incidence of the disease, especially among children and other vulnerable groups. Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Mohammed Pate, said the vaccines are expected to play a pivotal role in lowering malaria-related deaths. Pate said Nigeria is the third African country to introduce the vaccine following Ghana and Kenya, which began using it in 2023. He said the vaccine will significantly boost the country's ongoing malaria elimination efforts. Pate also said the vaccine rollout will begin in high-burden regions before expanding nationwide. Ogun State government says it is targeting 1,136,953 children for vaccination. Commissioner for Health, Tommy Koka, says the children are aged between 9 and 59 months across the 20 local government areas of the state during the 7-day integrated measles campaign, which kicks off on Saturday. Coker described measles as a highly contagious airborne disease caused by a virus that can lead to blindness, severe complications, and death, and that its vaccination had helped to avert 57 million deaths globally between 2000 and 2022. She noted that there were an estimated 136,000 measles deaths globally, mostly among the unvaccinated or under-vaccinated children under 5 years in 2022. National Youth Service Corps NYSC has charged Corps members to live impactful lives and legacies worthy of emulation during their mandatory service year and beyond. NYSC Director of North Central Area Office 2, Grace Ogbogebe, also charged the Corps members serving in Benue State to be security conscious as well as interact with people, while stating that good and lasting relationships are built during the service year. Ogbogebe encouraged the Corps members to sustain the skills they started with from camp and master them for self-employment. She informed the Corps members to note that they are important assets to the scheme and the nation, stating that the scheme was meant to mentor youth towards being better citizens. Now to foreign news. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced that the EU could draw lessons from a contested Italian policy of processing migrants offshore in Albania, as leaders of the 27 member states hold an EU summit focusing on migration. Ahead of the Brussels summit, Leyen wrote to EU leaders to say the EU's executive will present a new proposal for legislation to increase deportations of migrants. Italy started sending some migrants to a processing center in Albania earlier this week. 16 men were transferred to the Albanian port of Shenzhen, but hours after their arrival, it emerged that 2 were minors and 2 more were medically vulnerable and will therefore be returned to Italy. Other EU countries have started considering ways to process migrants in third countries. Now sports. Minister of Sports John Eno has congratulated Nigeria's Flamingos for their impressive win against New Zealand at the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. The Flamingos got their Group A campaign after a perfect start with a 4-1 win against the Oceanian team. The Flamingos will be back in action on Saturday when they will take on debutants Ecuador. And that's all for the news at 6. Always carry out proper and adequate checks on your vehicles before setting out. You can follow us and like all our various social media platforms. On X at Traffic Radio 961, Facebook Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM, Instagram Lagos Traffic Radio 961. On YouTube, subscribe and watch us live on our channel Traffic Radio 961. You can also visit our website on www.trafficradio961.ng. Did you know that the Sanwo-Olu administration supplied 86,000 dual furniture sets to 775 public schools? You can get more details on the Lagos State Government website. To end the news, here are the highlights of the major stories. In a bid to strengthen its financial inclusion policy, the Lagos State Government has commenced the process of inculcating financial literacy for indigent women in hard-to-reach communities as an integral part of the Sustainable Development Goals. Nigeria has received 846,000 doses of a groundbreaking malaria vaccine from development partners to reduce the country's high incidence of the disease, especially among children and other vulnerable groups. We also told you that European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced that the EU could draw lessons from our contested Italian policy of processing migrants offshore in Albania as leaders of the 27 member states hold an EU summit focusing on migration. And in sports, Minister of Sports John Enor has congratulated Nigeria's Flamingos for their impressive win against New Zealand at the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. For our contact with the newsroom, please send a message to info@trafficradio961.ng. And that ends the news broadcast compiled by Zainab Adibeshin. I am Akan Usen. Thanks for listening and please stay safe. Good evening.
Timeliness begins with the letter T. We strive to maintain timeliness in disseminating information to our listeners, and that is why we are reliable. Being the most reliable radio station